right, here we are back in beautiful West Virginia. My, what a treasure of artifacts in stone, of people speaking out and crying out from the stone from ages gone by. How precious it is. Again, I want to welcome Robert Pyle back to our audience. And if you will, Robert, would you introduce our good friend here we're on his place here. And I know one thing, I was looking through some of his artifacts, and from World War II, we've got quite a decorated hero right here. And I'll tell you what, those get far and few in between this day and time. Thanks for allowing us on your property. We appreciate you. I'll let you introduce him.
Okay. This is Mr. James Chips. Mr. Chips has been interested in archaeology for a long time, and his brother and I traveled around the country looking for archaeological sites and trying to preserve the history of our own state. And it was just really gratifying and making a lot of discoveries, and a lot of them were contributed through the late Mr. Wilbur Chips. And this is one of the first sites that we had visited out here on the area called the Kingwood Pike area. And this is an accumulation of the various artifacts found by Mr. Chips here, Mr. James Chips. This is a large flint knife or spear point. It looks like that it has been recently fractured, so I'd say that it was probably a spear point. Looking at the wear pattern indicates that it's more so as a spear point than a knife.
Too big going on here.
Yeah, and this is one of the small projectile points that was found in this area. This is one of the Kirk.
Can that help date it?
Yes, this helped date the site.
What are the things about that point that make it?
The configuration of the projectile itself. A lot of times you find a variety of artifacts at archaeological sites, and it's not really necessary at times to conduct a carbon-14, carbon-12, 13 test. You can date the site based on the type of artifact evidence, and that is the style of the projectile points, the types of pottery that are found. Pottery is one of the most important artifacts to be recovered from any archaeological or historical site, because it can help identify the ethnic groups as well as, again, date the site.
Would you say they wintered here in this cave, many of them? Would you say that?
I would say that they probably had, and due to the way the inclement weather hits this area, a lot of water would come down over the cliff of or over the face of the cliff, and as you can see where the water does occasionally wash in here, would have made it very miserable for anyone to have lived there. But I'm sure due to the archaeological evidence that we had found here that they had occupied it the year round. And by blocking up the entrance with posts, small saplings, they were able to make it quite comfortable, I'm sure. As you can see, it's quite spacious, and it's wouldn't take much to really heat it. And we didn't find any evidence of any of the posts out in the front during our excavation here, and there was a lot of broken pieces of flint. We found some sherds of pottery which were dated from the later archaic time period. We had found some freshwater mussel shells. The mussel shells were real interesting because this was one of the food sources that were available the year round, and this is how the Indians, the late prehistoric people who lived in West Virginia, were able to live the year round in the large village and rock shelters like this, because they had a food source the year round. They could go down to the streams where the freshwater mussels were, collect them, and that's all they would need.
Mr. Chips, has this place been in your family for quite some time?
It's been in my family as as long as I can remember, and I'm 68 years old.
Well, we sure do appreciate you letting us come here and show this to the folks.
You're as welcome as the flowers in May, and you're welcome anytime you'd ever want to come back, anytime.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
This is what's called the Pottsville conglomerated sandstone. Fine grained sandstone. And the way as you can see, the erosional pattern is that it gives you an idea of what type of weather elements affect this site itself. And that is due to the high winds and and a seasonal water flow. A lot of the cavities that you see inside of the rock shelter as well as outside, these are referred to as solution cavities, which have resulted from wind and water erosion. If you just had a front built on here, it would be quite usable even for today. A lot of
This dark is not smoke, is it?
some of it probably is, but a lot of it is due to an iron ore called manganese, and this is associated with the sandstone, the manganese.
I see.
As you can see in these larger pockets over in this area, right here, for instance,
Yeah.
and over here, this black, and right here there's streamers of manganese, and this is an iron ore. I was hoping that we would have found some picture drawings or some pictographs and so forth, but we've really looked the rock over, but
Robert, we seem to have another visitor along with us this time. Could you introduce this little lady to us?
yes, this is my youngest daughter, Stacy Pyle.
Well, Stacy, it's a pleasure having you with us, okay?
She contributes by helping to clean a lot of the artifacts up, and she also helped to excavate some of the sites down in Wyoming County. I forgot to mention that. So she's been quite an asset to our work.
That's fantastic. And we appreciate your interest in it, all right? Well, here we are, and as sometimes happens in documentaries, it's really raining out here, and the clips we took of this cave, which was a shelter, is now our shelter. And while we've been stopped here, we found flint, no doubt a particle from someone manufacturing tools or an accident. We found mussel shells, which was the remains, no doubt, from someone's quick snack that they took. I think it's fascinating that structures, should we call this a structure, a natural structure, that have existed for thousands and thousands of years. And it's all here. It's all still left. And as Dr. Pyle would say, all that remains. You have to dig for it, you have to work for it. But the peoples were here, and peoples from all over the world. Basically, when you research, you see influence, probably more better said, from around the world. As you look at the pottery, and it is unique that now it seems it's almost stopped raining, so we're probably going to make a run for it and get back up the trail. But what a joy to take just a moment as the rain that is natural, as we take shelter in a shelter that has been used for, well documented with the 1 point, 2,800 years. So here it is, and you know what? It still works. It's a fantastic shelter in a fall shower.
these two vessels here are or I guess you could say two of my favorite late prehistoric Indian vessels. And the reason is because they fit together, and comprising, after like 2 years of research, that they comprise a double boiler. And it was really puzzling as when I first started researching the vessels, is with the vessel with the tapered base. And I thought, why would you make a pottery vessel that wouldn't set upright? Because if you would put in the food stuff that you would have in it, it would tumble over and spill out. And so I started studying the patterns, the wear patterns on the surface of the vessel. And I come to find, and the two vessels were found within 2 meters of each other. And yeah, a little piece of coral. In this vessel here, and I looked inside here, and you could see a wear pattern where something had apparently rubbed the inner rim area of this vessel. And again, I got to looking at the two, and figuring out that they did in fact fit together. And looking at look at the outside contour, and it's like one single vessel with a decorative lower rim. In the museum at Waynesburg, Pennsylvania, there is such a vessel that has the outer configuration, but it's one single vessel and not a double boiler. But as you can see, the outer contour is very uniform. Whether that was intended or not, I don't know. But these are what we call Monongahela shell-tempered pottery. So, and we're looking at approximately about 900 AD.
Oh, 900 AD. That's fascinating.
And what I thought, why would, I mean, today we very seldom even have the need for a double boiler other than melting for chocolate or caramels. And I thought, what did the late prehistoric people need or want a double boiler for? And I thought, well, one of their main foods was freshwater mussels. And just like we prepare oysters, it doesn't take, you don't have very many oysters in a container, and when you're making like a soup and so forth. So I thought most of their activities also at the village sites were communal activity. So why not cooking? And I thought all they would have to do is leave this bottom vessel situated in the fire, and then they would just had to add more fuel to it, and remove the top vessel, and then add some water in the bottom here, and then put another vessel of this same configuration on the top, and continue cooking. This was found near Point Marion, Pennsylvania, and on the West Virginia state line, in a rock shelter. A rock shelter that was going to be destroyed due to surface mining. And so I was contacted by some friends who owned the property and asked me to come there and see if I was welcome to come there and just investigate it to see if I could find any artifacts or any evidence that man had occupied that shelter, because they knew that I was real interested in exploring and researching about early man. And so it was just one of many sites that I've visited at the Point Marion area. And Elmer Huntley, a real good friend of mine, who lived in the area and was real familiar with the site itself, and so we went down and started excavating, conducting test holes, and we did find some evidence that it had been occupied about 11 to 1200 AD. So I'd asked Mr. Huntley, I said, be sure and check all the ledge areas in case something had been pushed back in the ledge or discarded, and that's where it had ended up. And it was a common practice that I'd conduct at any of the rock shelters. And this little bear carving had been pushed in the one ledge of the cliff, and a bird had built its nest over the back part of the carving, and had protected it, I guess, from the elements for a very long time. And as you can see, it's in really excellent condition. It still contains the soil and so forth that I guess had resulted from where the bird had built their nest. But it's a volcanic stone. It's not indigenous to West Virginia. This type of stone is what we refer to as a pumice type stone, and it's been hand carved, and it was not done with a metal tool. So that was one of the things that did come out of the archaeological conference, that it wasn't carved with a metal tool, and that was real interesting and exciting to me. So. This is a unique discovery. This was what we refer to as a household type pottery vessel. The vessel contained the burial of a 1 to 2 month old infant. Dr. David Burr, physical anthropologist at WVU, assisted me in determining some of the causes of death of the late prehistoric people and some of the things that may have contributed to their death. We had looked at the infant skeleton and determined just from the sciatic notch within the pelvis itself that it was a female infant. When I first discovered this, the vessel, this is a photograph of it here, showing it inverted in the grave. In other words, the vessel was upside down like this in the actual burial. And the infant was sandwiched in between these two circular pieces of pottery, the one on the inside and this one here. We knew of the top one, and we were so realizing the importance of this discovery. Here's a household, what we refer to as a household type pottery vessel burial, and in the area of southern Missouri, there's been found many urn type burials. So pottery burials aren't uncommon. It's just the types that they are is what determines whether they're rare or not. And this is a very rare one. Dr. Burr suggested we conduct a CAT scan because the infant was still retained in the earthen matrix. I brought the whole burial back that was contained within the vessel. And as we had the CAT scan to penetrate in 5 centimeter units, this is where we decided to excavate it also. And all we were looking at from the CAT scan evidence was the various densities. And we saw this large, dense area in the bottom. And we knew that it wasn't the pottery vessel. And we didn't know it until after we totally excavated. And so that was a valuable tool to use, was the CAT scan, and it was able to show us various densities, and we were able to say, yes, this is not bone, and again, this is some of the research that we were conducting on this particular discovery, because it is a very rare one. This is a vertebrae. I've had several friends who are knowledgeable in animal osteology to take a look at it, and some thought it might have been a vertebrae from an elk. They thought it might have been a vertebrae from a buffalo. And it is an animal vertebrae that has a spear point embedded into the bone. And one of the interesting things also is the fact that the animal must have lived for a considerable time, because the spear point is calcified around, indicating that the animal had still lived. It probably was just wounded. And if you would look down towards through the cavity where the spinal cord would be, is that just the very bare tip of the spear point projects in. So that was neat too, because indicating that it did not touch the actual spinal cord. So This was one of 4 that was excavated from a site. These are, see, these 3 vessels, or actually these 4 vessels here, are what are referred to as effigy vessels. These are animal effigies, and this is, of course, is a duck effigy and a turtle effigy, and they date to about 900 to 1000 AD, and they're very well made, very well preserved. And this is a turtle, and as you can see, the way the artist had featured the back legs, it's really unique. It must have been a happy turtle because it seems like it has a smile. But it's a very, yeah. The Mississippi pottery was quite a, well, it was a very well made pottery, and it was traded to many different areas during late prehistoric times. And this vessel here has 2 frog effigy figures on it here. And then this is another example of a turtle effigy here. And just a small head projected out.
Well, did they worship these animals? Is that what?
No, I don't think that it was that. I think that it was a matter of personalizing their pottery, and this was one way that the artist would do that, was by featuring certain effigy types, and I don't think that that would have entered into it. I think they were just tremendous artists, and they it was their way of expressing their artwork, and again personalizing it. This shelf here has these three center area vessels are what are referred to as the Caddo mound builder vessels. And these came to me in pieces, and I had taken a long time to piece them back together. And they were obtained from a site near northern Arkansas. It had been partially destroyed, and the property owners had allowed my uncle and aunt to go by and pick up a lot of the pieces that were on the surface, and they were very careful as they did so, and I was able to piece this much of it together. So, this is a very unique pottery vessel that has some very unusual markings and designs on the surface, and I couldn't help from thinking that who really had made this pottery vessel, and this was found at an archaeological site in northern Arkansas, and it's called the Crossno site area. This is a book on the Newgrange area in near Dublin, Ireland, and the same concentric circles that are portrayed on this pottery are found at many of the tombstones and many of the petroglyph sites in Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. And I just thought it's really quite a coincidence that there's a lot of similarity here, and that's what I've been looking for, artifacts with these various like symbols that we have in Europe, that we have right here in West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Oklahoma. There's just several site areas that have artifacts with identical markings. It's just really unbelievable. And it's not like down in Wyoming County, West Virginia. Found all these artifacts with the same type stem line markings that is similar to the Ogham alphabet of around about 300 AD to 500 AD. And it's just amazing, the similarity. This is a unique stone carving that was found in the mountains of Mabin, West Virginia. Mabin is located southwest of Beckley, West Virginia. And this carving was first brought to my attention by Conservation Officer Ed Hall, who had been in the mountains there in Mabin and had talked to many of the local residents. And one of them had said that they had found this unusual carving on top of the mountain. And so with my petroglyph studies and the publicity that we've received on it, brought Ed Hall with this information to me. And the story was told to me, and then I got to talk to the actual individuals who actually discovered this carving. It was 2 ladies and a young boy, and the 2 ladies were sisters. And while berry picking on the top of the mountain there, one of the ladies found this carving. The carving itself was coated with a black lichen, an algae, and the carving is, or the figurine is carved in a piece of native West Virginia sandstone, and it was again covered with the black lichen, and the individuals had scrubbed the lichen off. It's like some people, when they discover a coin, is that they'll hurry up and rub it to see what the date is on it. So they were anxious to see what the actual stone looked like, so they scrubbed it off. I had a dissecting microscope with me, and so I looked at it under the microscope, and some of the black areas that you see still here on the carving is impregnated lichen. So I believe their story. And I'd asked well, it was just shortly after that, one of the ladies had died, and they had attached a superstitiousness to it. So I decided that I would like to meet these individuals. And so the one lady said that it was her sister who had found it. And the young boy, who is a young man now, I asked him, I said, what can you tell me about this stone? He said, well, I can tell you one thing. He said, we've gotten a lot of trouble with Dad for running all of these screwdrivers for chiseling this off of the rock. So again, I believe their story. And I looked at the configuration on the backside where it had been chiseled off of the main rock on top of the mountain there at Mabin. So I asked him if he would go up with us, and he said no, that he'd rather not. And so I asked him, I said, well, how am I going to know if I'm at the right site? Because throughout West Virginia we have a lot of huge sandstone boulders. And he said, well, I wouldn't have any trouble because the surface mine where this was actually found, one huge boulder had fallen down from the high wall. And so the conservation officer, Ed Hall, asked me to just go with him, and we'll go up and take a look and see what we can find. So we went up there, and we walked in about a quarter of a mile, and sure enough, there was this one huge boulder. And I went over to it, and you could see pretty much the same configuration that's on the base of this stone as to say that this was the actual boulder. And you could see the chisel marks created from the screwdrivers. The stone carving has really fascinated me for a long time, and it was first discovered by the 2 ladies and young boy in about 1960, and it was brought to my attention in 1981, 82, and I really took an interest in trying to figure out who really done this, and I had contacted the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. as to see what light they might be able to shed on this, as to say how old it is, who made it. Their only comment was as whoever did it was well trained, and I think it's quite obvious. And one of the interesting things is that the artists, whomever they were, he or she were, they didn't carve any ears. Maybe that's the way they wanted to portray it. It does have a very high forehead. It has To me, it has Asian, it has Negroid, it has Peruvian. It just has a lot of unbelievable features that represents many cultures. And the cut of the eye, the cliff chin, which is really unusual. Unfortunately, the stone carving was placed in a sportsman's shop, and someone had dropped a pop bottle and did the damage on the lip here. Also, someone had done a scratching up here, possibly with a penknife. And as I was examining this with the dissecting microscope, I could see that there was no metal particles. So however this was carved, it doesn't indicate to me that it was carved with a steel or metal tool of any type, because generally if it was of any recent vintage, is that it would definitely show some type of metal residue still impregnated within the stone surface itself. This stone carving again has really fascinated me for a long time, and I had been involved with many archaeological excavations, and the skeletal material that was recovered at many of these archaeological sites. I often wonder what the people really look like. And a friend of mine, Betty J. Gatliff, out at Oklahoma City, who has pretty much pioneered forensic art, and this is the reconstruction of skulls, and her work was mostly focusing around murdered victims, missing persons, that the skulls had been brought into the authorities, and asked of her to see if she could reconstruct these skulls, just to see what these people may have looked like. And I thought, why not do this with the prehistoric people that we have found? My interest in forensic art soon sprang up after trying to study the stone head carving. And again, Betty Pat Gatliff out in Oklahoma City, who has pretty much pioneered forensic art, had sent me a lot of information, and again we had corresponded and talked to each other on the phone. And as this is a very detailed science, and it's a very complicated science, especially if you're planning on having at least 97 to 98% accuracy. And this is some of the methodology that she does, is that she studies the various muscles of the facial tissue. There's two charts that are used for reconstructing the skulls. There's a chart for black people, there's a chart for white people, and it's because of the facial tissue thickness difference. And so it's important to know as to who this, what race the skull is from. And this is again another example as to studying the features of the skull, and then this is a plaster cast of a late prehistoric Indian, or prehistoric person I like to refer to, that again this is a plaster cast which I would use in the reconstruction by taking small plugs of eraser, just the same as just like an eraser on a pencil, and you glue the various thicknesses of eraser on the facial area of the skull, and the thickness of that eraser represents the thickness of the facial tissue based on the chart that is set up. So then you fill in all of the areas where the eraser plugs are, and then you gradually just smooth it out very slowly, and eventually this is just a rough draft of this same skull. Again, this is a plaster cast. this has been very crudely done, is that this is just in applying the first stages of a thin coat of clay on the surface of the plaster cast. And as you can see, it is taking form. And I was always interested in wondering, what did these people really look like 2,000 to 3,000 years ago? And through Betty Gatliff's process, she was able to bring to light as to what these ancient people look like.
And you have here, what do we have right here?
Okay.
It seems that you can just
Okay,
pick it up in
yes.
slide if you like.
Yeah. This is again the Plachetti tablet. It was found near Marietta, Ohio. It was found at Marietta, Ohio. Again, this is also a limestone tablet. You can see that there is a distinct stem line with markings above and below it. Some of the other markings here that are tree branch-like, this is referred to or very similar to what is known as dyad triogam. There's quite a variety of ogam examples known in Europe, and the dyad triogam is one good example, and of course the stem line is the traditional type stem line. Having this in comparison with the other stones that were found at Moundsville, these are two others, that you definitely have a stem line again featured in the surface of this stone. Maybe the scribe, whoever they were, decided that they wanted to use the limestone, and I think that whoever the scribe was very knowledgeable of the properties of stone, because I have conducted a lot of experiments in the laboratory as to familiarize myself with the various features that would be created from the use of various stone and metal tools. I wanted to know, because I'm investigating these sites, I'm researching these stones, and I wanted to be able to have a working knowledge to apply in the field, as to say, yes, this was done with a railroad spike, or yes, this was done with a stone chisel, or a bone tool, or a wooden tool. So I had set up, again, many in-house laboratory experiments trying to create the patterns that would familiarize me as to say, how was this made? And again, this one here is one that's very unique, is that it does have very well executed markings. You can notice that this is one large group of markings, and here's a smaller group, and then an intermittent group. This is what is common in the stemline ogam, because the amount of lines or markings in each group will identify that as a specific letter of the ogam alphabet. And I'm not a linguist, is that I'm an archaeologist, and I'm looking at the evidence here and comparing this evidence to that in Europe, especially Ireland, because that's where it was first used or documented as early as 300 AD, and at the archives in Dublin. Dick O'Brien, Kevin Dowling, the Cultural Affairs Attaché in Ireland, Darrow Creedon, who is just recently went back to Ireland, who was also the Cultural Affairs Attaché, had come to West Virginia and visited these sites. And they said that they are very similar to what they have in their own country. And I think that the record of what we have here in West Virginia, North America, I think that it would be exciting as to present this at first hand to the scientists in Ireland, as well as Ireland scientists, to better take a look at what we've got here. Okay. This stone here, which is really also petroglyph in limestone is that you have a distinct stem line, which is right here. Then you have these groups of markings above and below it. And there's other symbols that are on here. This little cupule was man-made. And as you can see, there's quite a variety of marks and grooves up here. I know that some of the marks throughout the stone are natural weather patterns. Some of them are little solution cavities that you see down in this section here. Some of the markings are fractures that have been sealed with mineralization and then re-solidified. And so one has to really be careful as to what markings that you identify as being man-made. One of the areas that I got involved with also with my laboratory experiments was differentiating between something that has been recently made and something that is at least 100 years or older. And that is looking at the texture difference. If you was to take a sharp object, say a metal object, and scratch the surface here, you would create what is called a sugar surface. And you would notice that that sugar surface would stand out above every other mark that's on here, because all the other marks are the same color or the same texture. And this is one of the things that I use, or one of the methods that I use in identifying, is this of recent production, or is this something that's ancient, at least 100 years or longer. And again, then if it's longer or older, then you look at the various symbols, and it becomes like a process of elimination, looking at what does apply to the record in Europe, because that's what we have to go by. And if I was to show these to an archaeologist anywhere in the country and ask them, or any scientist, could you differentiate between these petroglyphs and the ones that are in Europe, and especially again in Ireland, Scotland? And I don't know of anyone that can say, yes, this one's from West Virginia, this one's from Ireland. So, okay, and this one. This petroglyph is also in limestone. This is one of the 14 now. And this group of markings here is that these type symbols are. It was really exciting that I had viewed the same symbol at several different archaeological sites. So it tells me that there must have been some meaning to this symbol, because it shows up at more than one archaeological site, more than one petroglyph site. It's like the other stone that we have over here has very similar markings to the site at Beard's Fork in Fayette County, West Virginia, near Charleston. And again, you have quite a variety of symbols. And a lot of times in portraying symbols, which they refer to as rebuses, that a rebus is a group of markings that represents a group of letters. And so it's disguised in a picture form, not as a pictograph, but in a symbolistic type pattern that describes, and the people who would possibly be coming through the area would be able to identify. And that was another area that I was really interested in. And some of the questions has been, well, why is it in several different languages? And I thought to myself, well, why not? And especially not knowing who is going to be following. If your message was important enough and you were knowledgeable to leave it in more than one language, then why not? I thought that would be really important to do so, and being able to leave that, in most of the cases, a Christian message in West Virginia. Understanding the geology of the stone is very important, because a lot of times you can get natural weathering, natural fracturing that could be misinterpreted. And as an archaeologist, and my familiarity with many pictographs as well as petroglyphs, if I'm in question as to whether the marks that are featured on the stone are of recent time then I would mark them with using charcoal, allowing the linguists who are examining these stones is to say that the field investigator was questionable, as these markings in charcoal may be recent.
Let me say something before you do that, okay? This in Ogham right there is Baal or Lord. And I think I'm doing work on this right now because the stem line in Ogham. Because the Celtics who used Ogham, when you say Lord, Baal means Lord. So it's not necessarily saying that it's a foreign religion or a heathen religion.
Right.
It's a term of writing. But most people get turned off when they see BL in Ogham and say, oh, that's Baal worship, because of our Christian Bible.
Sure.
But in ancient languages, Baal meant Lord, and so forth. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you can see in that. It's fascinating.
I'd first early hypothesized that if there was ever a petroglyph to be found, I would think that Marshall County would be the site, because this is where the Grave Creek tablet was discovered, and it has like Iberian Hebrew type markings and symbols on it. And I thought, if these people really had made contact with some of the early Christian explorers to North America, that this would be a place where they would have well documented it. And why haven't we found any of the petroglyphs? And so that's what I was looking at. And several of my students there in Marshall County were going out on the weekends exploring, and as I pointed out to them that there's many things yet, to all my students, I said there's many things yet to be discovered, and those discoveries will come only if you're observant of the soils and the rocks around you. And so on the weekends, after the weekday after they had finished their homework, they were out looking for fossils, artifacts, and in doing so, this is the result of it. They had discovered actually 14 new petroglyphs. And these are the first petroglyphs that I've seen in West Virginia that are on limestone. All the others are in sandstone.
Well, and this is, in both cases, it's done by percussion. That's what you're drawing attention to.
Yes, the percussion method. It's like a pecking.
Rather than the scraping.
Or rubbing. Right.
That is certainly, it's obvious there.
Yes, it is to me too. Is the same type method was applied in creating these symbols, these markings, as was done in Ireland. It's really interesting, as in the area, well, during the year of around 500 AD in Ireland, the hermit priests were leaving Ireland because of temptation and unrest within the country. And they would go, and the way it is documented in the archives in Dublin is that these hermit priests would set their sails, and they say the Lord will blow them wherever He wants them to be. Well, hopefully maybe it was West Virginia that they were intended to be, and due to our huge mountains that we have here, I think it was only fitting that this would be one of the first areas in stopping. But it certainly is obvious that they must have traveled on westward, and that is from looking at many of the symbols and the sites that are found in Oklahoma and in Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia. It's really amazing. One of the things that really impressed me was the fact that many of the petroglyph sites, and most all of the petroglyph sites in West Virginia, have a Christian religious symbol associated with them, not where you would have a pictograph, meaning a picture type writing. This is one of the things that the early Amerindians, the later Amerindians, the Indians that lived in the area, they did not deface any of the petroglyphs with their pictographs, any of their picture writing. And I think one of the things that does set the West Virginia, again, that sets the West Virginia petroglyphs from all, or sets them apart, is the actual Christian religious symbol. And this is what I'm looking at the Dingus site in Mingo County. There's a symbol that is referred to as an anchor cross. This is about a 9th century anchor cross. And again, for anyone to have even faked them or perpetrated a hoax, I would think that they would have had to have had a very deep knowledge of these early Celtic type symbols and methods of applying the accuracy that you find at these sites. So,
Well, how did you get that stone down off the mountain? Was it, or
the boys,
the mountain?
yes it is. The boys in the steepest part of the mountain went out there and worked on the weekends and dug steps in the side of that mountain to walk down with this stone. And what they did, they had a big heavy piece of burlap, and they removed it before I had a chance to see it in place. But they were so excited and wanted to bring it to me, and so I just couldn't believe it when I went out to see it. And then I went on the mountain with them, and I said, "What are these?" I said, "Who did all these steps?" And they said, "We did, Mr. Pyle. We wanted to make sure that we didn't do any damage." She said, "We wanted."
I'm going to ask the good teacher. I see a box of very colored objects behind us. To show you what a precious area this is, could you bring a box of those over and
Sure.
explain to us what those are?
Let me do it this way. Yeah. Boy. Okay.
This is so you get an idea of this area and what has been manufactured here.
Yes. This is the round objects here is a group of Model A, Model T Ford gear shift knobs. And they had a lead insert that was threaded, and this is how they were applied on the gear shift knob on the Model T. And this object here, a lot of people are not familiar with it, but it had a round rubber suction cup that fit in this indentation, and this was stuck on the dashboard of the Model T, and wooden matches were placed in here, and this was a wooden match holder for the Model T Ford. And I guess they would make them to match the gear shift knobs, so you would have a set. And Fred Stoniker, who's 83 years old, lives in Point Marion, Pennsylvania, has taught me the identifications of many of these glass objects that were made there at the Who's Glass factory. And again, he had worked there at a very young age and become very knowledgeable in many of the things that were manufactured there, and in doing so he's passed it on, a lot of it, to me, and I was really appreciative.
Well, it certainly is a fascinating area, and what an area! What a blessing to be situated here and be a teacher. You know, that's because you have so much to teach from this area.
Yes,
Again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's always a blessing and a pleasure.
Thank you.
To have you with us.
It's a pleasure.
I want you to know it's been a real pleasure doing this documentary here in West Virginia. West Virginia, where it has been documented. And a man spending 30 years of his own life, one person alone, and all the people he came in contact with that brought forward this story of prehistoric, I suppose we can use that term, travelers. 30 years he has spent, and the last 5 years he has put into documenting much of the work that he has done. He has written a book titled All That Remains, which I think is so appropriate. A West Virginia archaeologist discoveries. And of course, that West Virginian is none other than Robert Pyle, who has been so gracious to spend this time with us. You know, much of the work, and what I find about this is so good, is not just your typical book of saying this documents this fact and that's it. Mr. Pyle is a teacher, and it does not only document the fact, he teaches you and leads you through certain finds, how they came to pass, where he found them, and it's all documented with picture, and one picture says 1,000 words, and I forget how many pictures there are in this, but it's a lot of them, and we're going to have them available here at the chapel. I know you're going to enjoy all that remains. All that remains, and all you have to do is contact the chapel. We'll have them in hand, and feel free to write Mr. Pyle if you like after you receive the copy, and congratulate him on what a great job he has done. You know, dedication to a purpose, to document that all that remains should also be taken care of. So when you're out in whatever state and you find one of these ancient remains, protect it, take care of it. I know this is going to be educational to you, and I know that you would enjoy receiving a copy. Again, all that remains, and how precious it is that we have people with dedication to protect that does remain. Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you with us through this hour with Robert Pyle.